BulkLoads Podcast, your number one resource for everything bulk freight trucking.
All right, that's the concept.
Hey guys, Jared Flinn with the BulkLoads Podcast. Got Tyler with me.
What's going on?
Well, as we do every week, let's start with a beautiful truck photo.
Yep. So today we have a Tammy Page with West Wind Transport out of Hilbert, Wisconsin. West Wind, they have been with us since 2020, so 4 years now. And Heath was the driver that actually took this photo. So you can see he got the truck all shined up at the truck wash, pulled it out, and it's all clean. And he snapped that photo. It's a pretty sharp rig.
Yeah, it's a really cool photo. It's almost, it looks like 3D. I can't, with that truck wash in the back.
Yeah, the contrast of the
truck
bright
really
teal.
pops out. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why they wanted to feature this, which, yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
I love the red lights underneath.
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, I like the rigs that are lit up.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for sending that in, Tammy. If you would like to get featured as a truck photo, please send photos to podcast@bulkloads.com or anywhere on social media. You can send it to us, and we would love to get you all featured on here. It's one of the coolest things that we can do to showcase your truck and share it out there. Speaking of trucks, for Semi Sam, we've been promoting this pumpkin haul. I did a reading or narration last week.
Yep.
You can go to our YouTube channel and check that out. If you have kids that want to watch it, happy to send a book as well. But we've talked about this for a while, actually doing some narrations. I was a little uncomfortable doing it first, but I think it worked out really well. So
yeah, I did.
I thought when we first started talking about it, I was going to sit next to a fire with a pipe reading,
That's the next one.
Yeah, the next one. But yeah, you can check it out on there. But also for Semi Sam, I did a forum post if you've seen that, but we're looking for creative characters that we can add to our next story. We're thinking about doing an Easter story, but we want to add a couple new characters. I had a couple people respond, but if you have a creative idea, maybe it's even just something like your company that we can put in there, send it to us. I would love to get that on there. I think, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about Big Rig Brandy?
I don't know about that one. I'd have to see an illustration.
I want to do a female character, but you got to be careful. I don't want it to like Big Brandy.
Yeah.
You can't be like,
you got to do a broker character.
Snub-nosed Sally. That might not.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, send that in. We'd love to. It's just something fun we do. We get to gift these out to kids. So first off, if you'd like a copy, reach out to us. Happy to send a copy and gift that to you. We still have several hundred left in store. But yeah, send us some ideas.
Yeah, or if you have the ideas, drop down below in the comments, comment those, head it over to our forum as well. And you can comment on that forum post or simply email in.
Awesome. Well, today's guest, I'm going to bring on a friend of mine, Dusty Clevenger. He is with Ascendant Partners, and they are a private equity firm. I have had just a fascination. I don't know if I think this started maybe 20 years ago of just learning private equity and the process of companies that buy and sell businesses. I don't know why, but it's just fascinating of how all that works. And sometimes it looks like it could be an easy task, but then there's, our bank, for example, they just bought these Western banks, and I forget how many hundreds of locations, but I look at that like, how does that?
Yeah.
It just seems like it's a huge task.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes. It's an interesting model. And so what Dusty talks about, and I think it relates to trucking because a lot of people, they want to know, like, how can they get, like, what are the steps to exit their business if they need to sell their business or get acquired, or, what that process looks like.
Or I would say right now, there might be some opportunities to acquire businesses.
Yeah.
So how do those processes work? So we're going to talk about that on this podcast. Dusty, actually, we kind of went down memory lane, and this is more my era, but he worked with ADM and then went to Gavilon and then started another company. But I can remember like seeing him from the sidelines as these companies, as Gavilon kind of got spun out of ConAgra.
Yep.
DeBruce Grain got acquired by them, and then AgSpring. But Dusty's going to talk about that. I think it's just a really cool story. You're going to be really fascinating to hear kind of how his take on it from the inside and how all that worked. So with that said, here is my conversation with my good friend, Dusty Clevenger. Dusty, thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
Yeah. Well, we met this summer at a family camp just down here in Branson. And actually, there was another mutual connection, Scott Walker, which he's been on the show, but introduced us, and you'd known him from working with
ADM.
him. Yeah. But we hit it off. It's great when you go to events like that and then you meet another. For me, it's either someone in agriculture or someone in trucking, and then you find that connection and you get to talking to them the whole week. But had a great, just a great experience at family camp, meeting you and your family. Sure. But you got a great story, and ironically, like we kind of were working a little bit together back in the past, but didn't even know it. With some of these other companies, but start us off right there. Like, talk about your beginnings.
Yeah. So sure. It's great to be here, Jared. Thank you.
Yep.
My career, it's been a Plinko board. I never would have guessed that when I launched from university that I'd end up at this spot of the board. It's just been, one thing after the other. Raised in Nebraska, I'm a farm kid, cut from the same cloth, which is a great thing globally. I know that means something to people in the ag community.
Yeah.
I did spend time with ADM. I kind of got my foundation in ag and trading commodities with ADM. It was great. I was in oilseed crush plants in Arkansas and Missouri and Illinois. And then with ADM, ended up doing global business development, kind of fell into it by accident, didn't plan to get there. But kind of started to understand putting a story together and doing a deal. Mm-hmm. Kind of why do you expand something, or why do you buy this or sell that? And ADM gave me a chance to do that in Brazil and Europe and North America. A great experience. Problem was I was traveling all the time, and travel wasn't easy travel. It was like overnight long haul flights. And I was like, I kind of want to be a little closer to home.
Yeah.
So I left ADM, went to ConAgra to become Gavilon, moved to Omaha, kind of back to the Cornhusker State, which for us is a move home, had our kids there, and really got to see private equity come into the ag space in a big way with Gavilon.
Yeah.
So I got to learn kind of what the New York private equity guys do and what the, grain company Gavilon did, and got to be a part of putting that together, which was a ton of fun. Was there for 4 years, did the sale to Marubeni and kind of saw that process go. And I thought, I kind of want to do this for myself. And I had the good fortune to find a couple of partners that moved to Kansas City. We put together a business. We bought 7 companies in about 18 months, put those together all in grain handling, sold those and kind of took some time and got into some other fun things. I did some barbecue stuff for a while. I did some safety supply things for a while. Kind of when COVID hit, I was in the safety business, which was a great place to be.
Yeah.
When everybody needed N95 masks and hand sanitizer, we had it. So we got to see that movie. And then ended up a couple of years ago at a boutique investment bank called Ascendant Partners, and really kind of doing the same kind of thing I've always done, just now for myself on behalf of other clients, which has been a ton of fun to be able to get to that place.
I want to kind of go back, and that was a great recap of it all. And going back to kind of ConAgra selling to Marubeni, the Gavilon, because that's what I found was fascinating, because it was it Greg Heckman?
Greg Heckman, right?
Yeah, because he was kind of the one that kind of led that. And you worked with him on...
Yep.
Can you, I guess this is for me, selfishly, I've always had just a fascination of like, how does that even work? Like when you're going through that process, first off, spinning a company out of ConAgra, and then getting the funds and everything. It sounds like just a huge task of where do you start? And
well, a lot of it is, proper prior planning and kind of having an idea where you want to get to. And then there's a good dose of luck in there too, for sure. So with the whole Gavilon ConAgra spin out, the ConAgra trade group was a trade group around the branded part of ConAgra. Kind of a square peg in a round hole to some degree with ConAgra, and the commodity risk is different than the CPG risk. So carving that out really created an opportunity for that business to flourish as a grain handling company, which is what Gavilon was. So bringing the private equity in to see the opportunity to put $1 in and get more than $1 out later through that growth is the whole thesis. So when I got there, that carve out had happened. And so our job was really try to figure out who do we want to be when we grow up as a company, and what is the market going to reward us to become? There's only so many buyers when you get to be a multi-billion-dollar grain company.
Right.
So who are those buyers? So that was kind of on our list. And what are they going to look for? What kind of platform would they value? And certainly where Gavilon was at the time was too small and fragmented for who we were going to go after. So we needed to fill in the gaps of the map and fill in the gaps of the business model. So a lot of my job was filling in those gaps and kind of identifying them, finding opportunities. We did some greenfield construction projects, like Altus, Oklahoma was a new project we built. Bought a few businesses, and then
DeBruce Grain was one of those.
The big
right?
one was DeBruce. So at the end, once we kind of put DeBruce's footprint over the Gavilon footprint, it kind of completed the map. So we worked with Paul and Larry and their team to get the DeBruce business bought and merged into Gavilon. And then we were complete and we were ready to go to market. And so then you start that process of, again, there's a handful of buyers who are going to be interested, and you kind of invite them all to the party and they kind of see what's there and go through your process and who's got the best value and the best terms. And then you close it. And then with Marubeni, because they own Columbia Grain, there was a bit of an overlap there that took some extra time for DOJ to go through their anti-competition work, which we worked through that. And then, the transaction closed and was successful.
I can remember because I was still at Bartlett Grain.
Yeah.
When DeBruce sold, and I never got to meet Paul DeBruce, but he got his feet wet at Bartlett. If I can remember right, he worked there before kind of starting DeBruce Grain and really built, from my lens, just a super successful company.
Yeah.
Was he, and maybe you can answer this, not answer, did he even have that, did he have thoughts of selling that, or was that something that you all approached him?
I think a lot of people had seen what Paul and Larry had built. Paul was definitely
they grew so fast, it seemed like.
Larry was the commodity guy. He was the integrator, in that whole thing. And I know a lot of people had approached them about, we see value in how DeBruce does business, and your cross-country program was great.
Phenomenal, yeah. Always competing with them on truck.
Yeah, and, we saw that at Gavilon. That was something that we really liked, too. We want to take some of that and put it into the Gavilon model. How can we do that piece, too? Certainly there had to be some kind of an event where, what happens with DeBruce? Eventually, Paul and Larry want to retire, and what happens to this thing? And I think there was probably, a couple paths. They could kind of hand it to some employees to some degree, or find a strategic buyer. And they didn't approach us; we approached them, and it was really that value proposition of how do you make what you've got started here, Paul and Larry, into something that's much better and bigger with the Gavilon. And so they started to nod along with that, and through a lot of discussion. And, Paul was a key part of a lot of that work with Gavilon, even post-close. He was very involved in all of that. I think the full team, including them, saw as a good place for their employees to kind of end up long-term. So when we start to merge leadership teams, kind of taking the best of both worlds and try to put those together, that was the task. But I know that there's a lot that approached them, and we were the ones who got lucky enough to make them part of what we were doing at Gavilon.
I wanted to spin back a little bit, and just for our audience, and we have viewership from all over the country, all different types of businesses, but not just trucking, but trading and all of the above. But though for people that don't know, what is private equity? Like, if you can really explain that to people that may not know, we've heard it, but what's private equity, or what are those companies that are a private equity group?
Yeah, sure. So private equity, just basically it's a group of money that is private money. It could be from wealthy families, from family offices, could be from pension funds, could be different funds that manage money on behalf of someone that goes into private investments. And they can be small or very large. So private equity is really kind of an umbrella term that has all types of flavors of different kinds of equity, different kinds of goals and objectives. Some are short term and really focused on high risk, high return. Some are more long term. Some are focused. A lot of them that we talk to at Ascendant are focused on the agribusiness infrastructure or land or just trends along the food or renewable fuels supply chain. They kind of like that thesis and they want to find opportunities to invest there. But it is just money pooled from private sources, either large individual offices or lots of smaller individuals that are pooled together into a group.
And these people that are involved, like the investors in private equity funds, obviously most times they're doing that because they have confidence or they think that money can be better used and get a better return on it.
Right.
in private equity, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And they have professional management. So, they're going to say, gosh, I could manage this money through these tools. I can give it to the professional. Jared's my private equity manager, and he's got these tools and access to all these new things. And so, yeah, through that management, through a private equity, they have exposure to different types of opportunities they could find on their own.
Okay.
A lot of them are the kind of things that we find at Ascendant, and we try to plug them into through that.
Yeah. I want to move on to, kind of that next entry, but like when you talk about private equity, and ironically, I was just talking to a gentleman last night. He's in the trucking space, but companies it was bought by this private equity firm. And he was actually a little more upset because he said the company, we used to be very customer focused. Now we're just growth focused. Right. Can you talk about that though? Because I think that's what scares a lot of people. Like when you talk private equity, sometimes it's got a negative connotation. Like, hey, it's all about grow, and then selling it out for a big number. Everybody gets their money. And like sometimes maybe you lose the heart of why the business started in the first place.
Right. Great question. And something that, I've seen a lot in my career, particularly in ag, particularly when you deal with typically, businesses that are started by or owned by a family, and they're thinking about a transition, and they have that legacy that's very important to them. I grew up in a small town in Nebraska from a family business. I get legacy. There's definitely different types of private equity in terms of how they handle those things. At the end of the day, the objective is to make money. Mm-hmm. But there's always kind of other objectives for some of these guys that aren't as important, but close to. So doing good for the long term. And sometimes that doing good means you have to be financially sustainable, of course. But how do you honor that legacy in the community? How do you build on it? How do you, take friction out of the system that just makes people's lives better, that happens to create a return, but it's making people's lives better somehow? There are private equity firms that think that way. And there are some that are, to your point, very focused on growth. And I'm going to look at the spreadsheet, and I'm going to spreadsheet everything. And kind of the people are a commodity that I can rotate in and out of it. And I think a reason that sometimes people come to Ascendant is to help filter through that noise, because we see all of them. And there's a role for all of them. Sometimes you want that spreadsheet, hard nose, I want to grow for, the sake of everything growth. Mm-hmm. And other times you're like, hey, my legacy is the important thing, and I'll take a smaller check for the benefit of knowing my legacy is protected. And we see all those kinds. And I think more and more there's a trend, it seems like, especially in ag, towards the kind of long-term community focus, treat the human well part while we make a good return. I think that's increasingly important because that's kind of where the competitive zone is now for investors. And there's more. Honestly, today, I think there's more investors looking for opportunities and opportunities looking for investors. And so that supply and demand has kind of forced them to get a little bit more towards that, the human side of the equation.
Yeah, that's good. I want to get this in. We got a lot to cover. We're going to get all this in, I promise. Yeah. But you went on, though, talk about the next kind of stage as COO, AgSpring. But it seemed like that company. And I can remember when that started. I remember meeting Randy Linville and Brad Clark and going up there and Leewood and visiting with him. But that was kind of something that just seemed like fun and exciting. Totally. And getting this thing off the ground. You were the COO, right?
Yeah. At the end I was.
But you were there. That was just like finding these companies to bring together and build. Yeah. I guess for me, I just have a fascination with that. I was kind of like looking back, just watching you all do this, which was cool.
It was an idea, and really we had an idea and some financial backing and a blank whiteboard to go out and kind of build a business. And, the idea and the vision was really, from Randy Linville with his background in ag. He kind of saw the landscape very clearly. Yeah. Through a church connection, he met Brad Clark, who was new to ag.
Because he was a sprint guy, if I remember.
He was a sprint guy. He was a Navy guy. He's a lawyer, and he just brings so many different perspectives. And all the old rules of thumb that we had, he challenged all of them, which was very healthy. So those two had put together this idea of AgSpring, and their financial backer used to be my boss at ADM. And so he introduced me to these guys and said, hey, you kind of need somebody to be the boots on the ground to go out and kind of find stuff. And so it was the three of us, and we kind of grew from there, with the idea that there are these kind of niches in the ag space where somebody could come in and build really kind of a portfolio of different individual operating units that share a common corporate infrastructure to reduce their cost and continue to do well, that need capital, to either do some growth or do something, and we can help them with that capital and kind of fix the next level of growth for them. So we had our whiteboard and we had ideas, and we just hit the road.
So you were out there bird dogging.
We just knocked on doors. Hey, I'm Dusty from AgSpring. This is what we're up to. Would you be interested in selling your company? And it was almost that simple.
Yeah. I kind of feel like a lot of it would be, somebody's like, no, we're good. But then kind of like if somebody wants to buy your house or your farm, no, it's not for sale. But then you kind of just,
you start to think about it.
You start thinking about it, and then you come back like, well, maybe that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. And for us, it was, you kind of think about the private equity approach. So we could very much feel like private equity going into that small town, because here's this guy, he said he's got some money, wants to buy this thing. Okay, what are you going to do with it? So what was really important for us is, we're from the space, we're cut from the same cloth. I understand, our first acquisitions were in Northeast Louisiana and Southeast Arkansas. And so we met some business owners there, and we kind of targeted that zone because cotton acres had been reducing, corn and soybean acres had been increasing, grain handling infrastructure was inadequate. So we saw there's probably a gap here. You have family-owned businesses or a small co-op that doesn't have a lot of money to put up a bunch of grain storage and everything it takes to handle corn and soy versus cotton. So we showed up, and our story was very much one of, we want to put together something here that honors your collective legacy for everything you and your family have done in the region, where your name stays on the side of the elevator. Our money can come in and help expand to meet your farm or your customers' needs. And we take all of the back office stuff that nobody really likes to do, and we're going to do that for you at a lower cost. And so that was kind of our pitch. And if you're interested in that, then we got a few seats at the table, and we'd love for you to take one. And it took time. They didn't say yes or even maybe on the first visit, but after time, like you said, it kind of started to resonate with them. And then once we got one to say, I'm in, then that kind of started the momentum. And, we bought 3 there, put them together, and they chose the name Big River Rice and Grain is what we call it.
I remember that. Yeah.
They chose it. We made a logo, we put it on there, and a lot of the growth was their growth. We didn't tell them what to do. They kind of said, this is what we want to do, and this is why. And our job was just to be the conduit to get the money there and help make it better. And then we did one in Idaho. We did one in North Dakota. And then we built.
Wasn't there artesian?
It was, thresher.
Yeah. It's crazy. I remember all of this.
Artisan wheat. We got that from General Mills. And then Firebird Artisan Mills. We got that in Harvey, North Dakota. And then, the freight brokerage business, we started that up. Yep. And so we kind of put all these things together. And what really kind of stalled our progress is we ran out of money. So there's only so much in the fund that we had that we could allocate into our business. And so it's time to go find the next round of investment. And so that's when we did our recap process to bring in a new investor with deeper pockets to kind of keep that machine going. And then we kind of switched from private equity who understood agriculture to private equity who didn't. And the cycles of ag are just different than the cycles from making widgets in a factory. And we happened to hit one of those times when, it was a tough cycle in ag. New buyer came in, they thought they were going to get this and they got that. And so at the end of the day, most of us ended up leaving AgSpring, and then part of that business got sold off to different directions. That's kind of why it's just different types of equity for different seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember kind of watching all of it play out and unfold, and it was just so fascinating to see. And again, just how fast it grew in a short amount of time. But
it was a lot of fun when you have that alignment. It's really about alignment with what the market wants, with what a business wants, what the capital wants, and kind of what the competition or your counterparties are kind of letting you do. When you have that alignment without a lot of layers, you can just execute. And we just executed. It was a lot of fun.
Let's talk about where you're at today and kind of doing the same thing just with the group.
Yeah.
You've been involved in some, we were just talking about some that you've done here in the past. I don't know if we can talk about those, but like some of these grain, the ones that have already been executed. Cause I think at the time I was talking about Skyland Grain, but you guys were part of that acquisition. Can you kind of share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we, so at Ascendant Partners, so we're, like I mentioned, we're a small firm. We're boutique. We've got 7 people, Denver, Kansas City, got a couple guys, Omaha, Chicago, Madison, Wisconsin. And we really focus on agriculture and ag. When I say it's a grain handling space, it's a little bit kind of the first level food space. And then the big thing for the last couple of years has been the merger of energy and ag and renewable fuels, particularly around renewable diesel and the supply chain for feedstock for renewable diesel. Mm-hmm. So last September, we closed a $500 million raise for the new crush plant in Mitchell, South Dakota. That was, a big one for the firm where we brought in local investors and an energy partner and an anchor sponsor in South Dakota and a protein meal off taker and kind of put that capital structure together. And that plant's under construction now. We'll be up there, in a couple of weeks to see it when we go pheasant hunting. So it's really neat to kind of see those things happen. You mentioned Skyland Grain. So it was announced a month or 2 ago that the Andersons is coming in to buy a piece of the Skyland Grain business in kind of Kansas through the Texas Panhandle as a partner to kind of keep growing that business along with about 9,000 co-op members. So we got the knock from Skyland and say, hey, we've got some issues on our balance sheet and we need some help to fix them. And so we come in and we usually start just as a advisor, consultant to kind of sit down with them and say, what do you think is the best thing for your business? And so we'll work through that without the motive of let's get a deal done, let's raise some money or let's sell something. Let's really figure out what's the best thing for you. And it may not be to do a deal. So we'll do that. And then from that, we'll help them with what do you want to do with your business? Is it buy something, sell something, raise some money to do something else, or something different than that? With Skyland, it was let's bring in a partner. With the South Dakota project, let's raise a bunch of money to build this plant. West Plains in Western Nebraska. So we did that this May. For them, it was, we've got this business. We're trying to kind of figure out a better way to make margin in what we have. And we help them carve out a chunk of their assets to a local co-op to kind of streamline their business in that case. A unique one, this week I was in Guyana, the country of Guyana. I didn't tell you about that, but I was down there and the country of Guyana.
I should know where Guyana is, but I don't. Where is
South America between Suriname and Venezuela?
Okay.
So in Guyana, the last few years, they've discovered tons and tons of oil reserves. And so Guyana is a country of 800,000 people they're the 17th largest country in terms of proven oil reserves. Tiny country with a lot of oil. That's obviously going to change things significantly for them. They're part of this Caribbean community of 15 nations that was formed after COVID and food supply chain problems. And Guyana is kind of the breadbasket for this group. So through a friend of a friend and a connection of a connection, they kind of get a hold of us and say, hey, we've got all this farmland here, this land that could be farmed. And we need some help because in Guyana, we mine gold, we mine diamonds, we have oil offshore, and we've got all this savanna land, and we really want to farm it. And the government's very pro-business, and all the pieces are there, but we just need somebody to farm it, and we don't know how to do that. So Ascendant gets the nod, and we get the deal, and we go down there. And so this week, we were looking at this savanna land and meeting with foreign secretaries and all these people to try to put together a package to say, who would be the best person to come in, develop this land? And it's beautiful land. It blew me away how it's virgin turf. It's like just how God made it eons ago. It's just sitting there ready to go. So who can we bring in to develop it and to then operate it as commercial scale food production capacity to service this Caribbean community? So those kind of things, they're a little off the normal for Ascendant, but we get to see that kind of stuff too. So with kind of what I've done and who Ascendant is, it's a lot of fun to be able to just come alongside Skyland Grain or the government of Guyana or whoever it is to kind of help them realize more potential in their business in a way that I think really honors the talents and skills and resources that God's given us to steward on his behalf. And that's really what we're doing.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's wanted to make sure we really
you
save some time on that. But you've been faithful in your business and work, and talk about how that's played a role in your business. And specifically too, like we shared this when we were at family camp together, but you've really helped coach and mentor others that have started businesses, and really talking about how putting God first in the business will bless you far more than.
Absolutely. Yeah. Man, that leads everything for me. I mean, it's, I used to tell people that I have a list of priorities in my life. It's my faith, my family, myself, my job. And if I keep that in order, I'm going to do a great job for you, Mr. Employer. A few years ago, I realized that was a bad way to think about it. My list has nothing on it except my faith. If there's anything else on my list, it's a temptation to be an idol. My faith just leads all of it. And I don't shy away from it. In Guyana this week, I'm asking people about their faith, and we had a great conversation with the guy who was driving us around about his faith and his church experience. And I think that this platform of Ascendant Partners, this blessing to be able to help in this investment banking role, it's good to do deals and it's good to help businesses. But the reason I'm doing it is because of the human that's behind it. And I see that person as someone who is going to spend eternity somewhere, is someone who has the same fears and struggles with sin and all those things that all of us do. And maybe they have Jesus and kind of understand how his forgiveness works in that situation. And maybe they don't. Maybe they're trying to solve it some other way. Mm-hmm. And my prayer with all of these meetings is just to reflect Jesus in that situation. And it, in terms of how I help younger guys who are coming behind me who feel like they're trapped on this treadmill, just sprinting as fast as they can to try to gain rank and get more ribbons on their uniform, only to
gain
realize,
wealth, material wealth.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't get them what they thought it would. To kind of help them step off the treadmill and just kind of reassess kind of what really is important, and how can I see life through a high definition TV lens, not just black and white, which is kind of what I think life is like without Jesus in their heart. And then how do they take that and put those thoughts into how they behave as fathers or mothers or husbands or wives or employees or bosses. And it changes everything. Specifically, there's examples that, when I was at our safety company, we went all out on a biblical foundation. And we had some great mentors like David Green, who started Hobby Lobby, was one of our mentors. He kind of talked to us about how Hobby Lobby does their thing. So we paid off all of our debt. We changed how we pay and incent employees. We did a tithe program once a quarter, and our employees had the obligation of sowing our tithe money as a company into God's kingdom according to a certain rule set. And we set all those things up, and then COVID hit, and we had this website, and we had everything, no debt, all this stuff was ready. So God had gotten that business ready to be a tool for him in COVID that financially blessed us, but we were a conduit for COVID. It's kind of cool to see that. We have the same kind of structure at Ascendant Partners, where we want people to feel the love of Jesus when they come to Ascendant. We don't talk about it a lot. We don't advertise it, but that is the heart of who we are. One of our values is to focus on the human. And that's why that value is there, is because we are all people behind our logos or our corporate, business card. We're people. And I found that the more I talk about that and tell people kind of why I care for them and why I want them to be successful through whatever my role is with them, they all appreciate that. It hasn't cost me anything to be forward with my faith. If anything, it's led to some really cool, deep conversations and hopefully some seeds planted, some seeds watered that, when I get to heaven someday, I can see some people up there that'll say, gosh, I'm so glad that we had that chat.
That's awesome.
That's my goal.
Yeah. I was earlier this week in Pennsylvania visiting some clients in Lancaster County, Dutch community. But a couple of things I noticed was just how rich and faithful a lot of the people we went. I mean, in that community, a lot of Mennonites, Amish, Some of the companies we visited were Mennonites, some not, but a lot of them, I mean, their faith was just so strong, and they talked about the Lord and God's blessing. But I'm looking at these people, I'm like, and I said this to the gentleman, our videographer that was with us. I was like you can see the Lord's blessing upon these people because they've been faithful.
Right.
And the last thing there was one of the companies we went and visited. We started talking about the gentleman's father who started this company. And I was like, why do you think he was so successful? Well, number one, he said his faith, but he said he was so generous with people.
Yeah.
And that just, it impacted me. Like he said his father was just, and continues today, he was generous with little when they started, and now he's generous with a lot. And I mean, it was encouraging for me to hear that. And again, it was just like, it was, as I see more and more, as I travel and visit these people, you pick up on those, and especially these communities where you can see how strong their faith is, and really how the Lord's blessed them in many, many ways.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. One of my things has always been, I want to be a river, not a reservoir.
Yeah.
It's so easy to be a reservoir. In the Bibles would talk about building bigger barns. And I think we see it a lot as people become successful, they build bigger barns.
Yeah.
The nicer car, literally the bigger house, the next house, all these kind of things, people build bigger barns. And it's so tempting to do that because we get judged by others by the size of our barn, and I always challenge myself I want to be a river of whatever. It could be money, it could be time, could be talent, could be anything. Be a river, not a reservoir. I don't need a bigger barn. And for me, a key part of this whole thing, Jared, is you have to have accountability, because otherwise that sinful part that's still in my heart, it's gonna sneak in there and say, you know what, you could probably use a little bigger barn. And I am definitely not perfect in this, but I have accountability in my life with my CPA on tithing as an example, and other guys who I kind of say, this is what I want to do. Now hold me accountable to this, because when the time comes, it's really going to be easy to go this way when I know I really should go that way. So that's a key thing I've learned in my life, is accountability is so important. You can't do this alone. None of us are strong enough to do this on our own. We have to be in community. And it's really, that's what Jesus would say is his church, to have that accountability where you can just be completely vulnerable with people, a men's group, whatever it is, to have that accountability. And when you stumble and you struggle with something, you can let them know and they can lift you up. And when you're successful in something, they can be the first one to high five you because they know how hard it was for you to get through that.
Yeah.
Critical.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the men's group. That's something that I've always tried to make sure, because when Jared lives in isolation, Jared's in a very dangerous spot.
Right.
And I always have to be around men that are keeping me accountable and sharp. I want to go back, and we'll end it on this one. Dusty, again, I talked about our viewership on here, and, we're seeing all different sizes of businesses. We really see trucking aging out, but even some of these businesses. But for people out there that are maybe kind of thinking transition or, acquisition, walk us just a little bit through that process, how that works. Because I think it can be something that sounds like, well, I'll just wait and to see if something happens, or should I be proactive in talking with someone to seeing if there's an opportunity out there? Right now, it seems like in the trucking space, there can be some really good deals because it got really saturated. So we're already seeing some of these companies acquiring other companies and really kind of building a bigger platform or an ecosystem. But I guess my question for you is, there's someone that's out there maybe thinking strategically on maybe growth, or strategically on maybe selling or being acquired. Give us kind of high level how that process works, because I think that's one thing that just seems like it can be a little uncertain. And does somebody really have my best interest?
Sure. Well, I think the thing, and, and I've seen this in my own family, and, my dad's a successful entrepreneur that's created a great business, and he's been proactive in the last, number of years, and kind of what the heck's going to happen to this thing? Because everybody gets to that point, like, what is going to happen to this thing that I've got? So I would definitely say to be proactive and at least thinking about kind of what do you want to have happen? You can do that on your own or with your family or with an advisor. I would, obviously I'd recommend having a trusted advisor who could be there with you to kind of help sort through, what are your hopes and dreams for this thing? I mean, if you've built this business and you've got this, this machine that creates wealth somehow, what do you want it what do you want to do with it? Do you want to, cash out? That's perfectly okay. And what does that look like? And then how do you maximize that? And what's the right time to do that? There's huge tax implications for how you do that that an advisor can help you through. Do you want to create something for the next generation, and kind of what does that look like, and kind of who is that, and how do you start that process, or something different? So there's always, this inflection point where they need to make a decision, and the sooner they think about it, the more prepared you can be for when that moment comes. The last thing you want to do is have that moment kind of sneak up on you all of a sudden and you're not ready and you're forced to make a decision. And that's when you could lose a lot of value. And the things that are important to you kind of become less important than time. Right now, if you've got time on your side, use it to kind of get that plan figured out. But in terms of process, like for us, as an example, if we had somebody call us and say, hey, I'm kind of, this is kind of where my business is, and I'm kind of thinking about kind of what I want to do in the next few years, that would be where we would start is, well, what do you want to have happen? And what does that look like? And help us see, if you had a magic wand is something I like. If you had a magic wand, what would you make happen right now? And so we kind of start with that, and then we work backwards in terms of how we could get there, either we helping you or we referring you to somebody else or just kind of telling you how to do it. Usually when it comes to the point of, I want to maximize value while protecting my legacy is a typical answer. Then the role for someone like Ascendant is we have access to so many different types of partners or capital or those kind of things. Like we mentioned before, we could kind of sort through a pile and come back and say, here's 4 or 5 that make a lot of sense. Why don't you meet with these guys and they can meet with you and just kind of see if there's some chemistry there, see if that makes sense. That's really a big part where a boutique firm like Ascendant, we can help you answer the questions and then also kind of introduce you to some people that kind of meet what you're looking for, because it's a needle in a haystack. And you can't just Google it all the time. Google's going to direct you in one direction and maybe the right direction somewhere else.
Have you all have you had any experience with trucking at all? I know some of these elevators, they do have fleets, but I didn't know if that was something the firm has ever messed with.
We, in the 2 years I've been there, I haven't seen any. We certainly could have in our history, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. But we do see, we touch a lot of logistics. We've got, projects on rail. We've done things on, barge terminals, all that kind of stuff. But trucking companies, I couldn't say that we've done one since I've been around there. AgSpring, obviously, we did a bunch with the AgForce platform. But yeah, it's a business, and it's a person behind the business that has a hope that, again, our job is to help unlock that. So
I guess I'm always, now visiting the countryside, but seeing hundreds of thousands of these companies, but these successful companies I see I'm not saying they're all this way, but like it's them that have really kind of maybe diversified and maybe kind of thought outside the box on what else they can do. But it's interesting to say that sometimes maximizing value might be kind of bringing things together and consolidating, and where you're, a trucking company can work with a barge or a rail, and bringing those synergies together versus keeping them separate.
I'll give you one last example just on the kind of what you want to do. So there was a guy when we were at AgSpring in Idaho. So we started our business out there, and there was a neighboring elevator that was owned by a gentleman named Ray Carlson. I still remember his name. A Mennonite guy, kind of prominent in the community. He had this great grain elevator that kind of fit well in our network. And so we met with Ray and like, okay, Ray, we'd love to buy your elevator, and here's why. And, what do you want to do? He's like, well, I'm a seller, but my number is, and he had this big number that was like twice what it was worth. Like, well, we're not going to get there. But what do you really want? He's like, well, I got my grandkids and kind of want to pay for these things for them. And, the money has a purpose for kind of this legacy of mine. So understanding that need for him, we're like, you know what, how about we buy your business with this variable annual annuity product that we're going to buy on your behalf that basically pays you this revenue stream over a period of time that gets you to the number that you want for your grandkids. For us, we can buy the product for what's a fair value today. And for you, you get that revenue stream that gives you that money over time. So it's a time arbitrage.
Yeah.
And he agreed, and we bought it, and we closed it, and that's how we did it. But it was understanding for him. He thought he needed this much money now to create this for his grandkids, and understanding what he was really going after. He didn't need a bunch of money now to go buy a bigger barn. He needed money to kind of leave his legacy for his family. So we helped him do that in listening to him. So that's one of the things where, if someone like Ray has a business and they're like, gosh, I would really like to find a way to do this for my family. And it's kind of a unique thing. I just don't know how to do that. Having a conversation with someone like us can kind of help think outside the box a little bit and kind of whiteboard some different ideas that could get there.
Yeah. At the crux of the matter, like, what's your outcome, or like reverse engineer, like what's the end game? And then let's kind of back off.
Get there.
Yeah. So last question, I will let you get you out of here. So what does the land, because you're seeing agriculture all over.
Yeah.
What does the landscape look like for ag?
Great question. It's, I think I've seen, I've been in the industry for 25 years, kind of professionally, and seeing there's so much changing in the last few years, really revolving around, I think the big thing is renewable fuel policy. If you look at what's happening at the federal and state level around things like renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel, and the alignment of energy and ag. So when ethanol was a big deal, energy and ag were at odds with each other. With renewable diesel, we're all on the same page. With sustainable aviation fuel, we're all on the same page. Airlines are committing to go green. That means they have to have SAF. To have SAF, you have to have a feedstock for it. To go to Europe, you can't use vegetable oil, so you have to have another kind of feedstock for it. So you get these novel crops like camellia and carinata, which mean you have to have a way to crush it, which means you have to have a grower to grow it, which means you have to have a transportation to move it. There's all these pieces to it. And the forces are massive behind it. So for the ag space, we've seen 23 soybean plant expansions or green fields and 5 new canola crush plants. Those things are $500 million a copy. So
my gosh,
big dollars coming into the space. It's changing the flows in terms of what growers grow, where trucks move to and from. We're going to see that continuing to change. More protein meal hitting the market because we're crushing more oil seeds here for the oil, not the meal. It used to be you crushed a soybean for the protein.
Right. Yeah.
Oil was a byproduct.
Yeah.
It's flipped. You're crushing for the oil. The meal is a byproduct. And that ratio is kind of moving around a little bit, but that's what's happening. So the role of the elevator is kind of changing. The role of the farmer is kind of changing. I don't know how it all sorts out, but I do know that this energy around a movement towards greener fuels is real. Renewable diesel is real. You can put it in one of your trucks and burn it, and it burns just as well as petroleum diesel. Sustainable aviation fuel is the only way you can go. You can't put batteries in airplanes. So SAF is real. And over time, it may be a decade, it may be longer or shorter, we will see different supply chains and crops that we've never heard of before. That's all coming, which opens up opportunities and risks for people that kind of want to think differently about it or not. It's exciting for us to be where we are because we get to kind of see the landscape and kind of be a part of what's happening. And then on top of all that, Jared, there's so much money sitting on the sidelines that wants to be a part of it.
Yeah.
That's a little scary because money can come in and really mess up a supply chain if it makes a bad bet. So there's definitely responsibility to try to make sure that we put it to work in a good way so we don't mess up something, So that's something that we carry very dear with us at Ascendant, is how we kind of be a part of that. But a lot of change, and they'll be good. They'll be, people will pay a lot of tuition along the way. But it's going to look different a decade from now than it does today.
Yeah. I guess I'm excited about that. I think I see that as opportunity
me too.
For our industry, and especially for our clients that we serve, especially because that stuff, it's got to get moved one way or the other. And a lot of times if there's more of it, that's going to be more truck movement too.
And those truck supply chains are flexible. It's not like you got a rail line that goes from A to B.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a flexible supply chain that can ebb and flow much more easily than a river or a rail.
Well, you're the second guest that we had one in, Susan Stroud. She came in a couple months ago and she said the exact same thing that you just said. So it must be real. It must be real. So Dusty, buddy, thank you so much for coming into the podcast. I think more than anything, man, I'm glad God intersected us, and I'm glad we got to meet and start that relationship. You've been a good friend, and I know your family's waiting, so we'll stop at that. So, man, thank you so much. God bless you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jared.
Tyler, we touched on it on the end, but I loved just talking about the faith element.
Yep.
We know that we talk about that on here, and we don't ever do it to brag, but we want to glorify God and share his message out there. I loved how Dusty just shared his message and how faith has been interwoven with what he's done throughout his career.
And I think it's a very common theme that we see with successful businesses is a lot of them that grow and are successful. It's because of the faith aspect, and they put all their trust in God, and God plays a big picture in helping them grow their business.
It wasn't until even later on where we kind of really incorporated faith more into our workspace here. And it's just been encouraging. I think more people want that and they want to see that in the work spot. And I think that it's just been awesome that we're in that stage of life. And it doesn't mean that challenges don't arise and situations. But again, I think it's a commonality that most of us in this industry share, that we get to glorify and be part of it.
Yeah, to me, it's just a breath of fresh air, especially whenever you're going out and visiting these companies. Whenever somebody says, hey, thank you so much for incorporating faith on your podcast and everything, it's just a breath of fresh air knowing that, hey, there are a ton of businesses who are incorporating it, and trying to incorporate it in their business. And I think that's what we need more of.
And speaking of, I think a lot of people were shocked when our conference was last year and incorporating that in there, just the prayers that we did before meals and sending people off. But if you're interested, I just bring that up because our conference is coming up. Man, I'll just say you've done a great job. We've already sold a lot of tickets. Yeah. We still have plenty available. We've already secured a lot of sponsorships. So this thing is steamrolling. It's super exciting. And I want all of you to be part of it. Yeah,
it's going to be April 16th to the 18th in Branson, Missouri. You can go to bulkfreightconference.com and get your tickets right now. The early bird tickets are on sale until January 15th. After that, they do go up. But we have secured sponsors. So I'm just going to highlight some of those and just say thank you to Walmsley Transport, RFG Logistics, RC Trucking and Rating Transport, Martin Vibrators, Ingredient Logistics Services, Bushel, Aero Truck Sales, Western Trailers, Wilson Bulk, Reliant Transportation, and Foltz Trucking. So I just want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors. We do have sponsorship opportunities still available. So if you're interested in helping us put this event on and partnering with us, we definitely appreciate it. Our goal is not to, make money off this thing. Our goal is to break even. So whatever extra money we get, we put back into the conference so we can make it, we can make it more personal and that much better.
I think, we hear this every year, but some of the resistance, there's never a good time. You're always going to be busy in life.
Yep.
Trust me, we all have families. We all have work that we have to do. There's seasons that require a lot of our time. This is something you don't want to miss. You will benefit greatly from it. And the people that you will meet, you'll come to find out there's a lot of people in this industry that had the similar goals. And when we unite together as a group and come together and discuss these, good things happen. I promise. So that's my word of encouragement. Do not let this thing slip. Get your tickets right now. Make plans to be there. You will not regret it. I promise. If you do, and if you don't, if you do regret it at the end, come see me. I'll refund your money.
We'll make it right with you.
We'll make it right with you. But look on your calendars. Go ahead and block it off right now in your calendars. Go ahead and get your tickets purchased. That way you're in, and we will see you there here in a couple months.
Awesome.
5 months.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, 5 short months. I will say this too. If you go on the conference website, there's a link on there that says hotels. We've partnered with Hilton to provide all attendees 50% off their room rate. So make sure that you are using that link to secure your hotel rooms. Other than that, I want to mention we do have the calendars. They're being printed right now.
Yeah,
the 2025 calendars. And this thing, Garrett did a really good job putting this thing together. We've included some pictures that Joe took. So there's some really good pictures on here. I'm excited. And our calendar, again, this year for 2025, we'll have all of the important truck dates on there. So we have Matt's on there, all the truck shows. We have the Bulk Freight Conference listed out. That way you know when each event is. And we want to give it away, the calendars, completely for free. So if you want a calendar, just simply drop down below in the comments and just comment that you want a calendar, and we will reach out to you and get you one. Yeah, they're not printed yet, but they're at the printing press. Yep. So fill it out now. When they come in, probably be in December, we'll get those sent to you. Awesome. So awesome. Cool. Well, again, Dusty, thank you for coming on the podcast today. One thing before we close out of here, I heard this quote the other day. We're getting into the holidays. The holidays can bring a lot of happiness, but they can also bring a lot of stress to people. In trucking, it's something, the holidays it's always tough because
trying to get drivers back. You're missing days on the road. Just, it's a logistics nightmare. So I get it. I've been there. I've breathed it out there. But I heard this quote by John Milton. I thought it was good. It says, the mind is its own place, and in itself, it can make heaven of hell or hell of heaven. So again, it's a perspective of how you treat this. So if you think the holidays are just going to be, and I mean, it's going to be a logistics nightmare, getting the family together, having to spend money, all that. Yeah, it can be chaotic, or you can make this the best holiday season
that's good.
yet. So again, it's all perspective and how we go out there and make the day our own. And that's just my encouragement here. So make a hell of a lot of heaven. So,
that's good. That's good.
Cool.
To remember.
Well, as we always do, I will close us out. Heavenly Father, we love you. Lord, we thank you for people like Dusty Clevenger and what he's doing out there to glorify you and spread your word. Lord, we pray over this industry. And Lord, as we get into the holiday season with Thanksgiving and Christmas and all these holidays, Lord, we just ask that we keep you in the center of our hearts, Lord, that through all the chaos, Lord, that we know that you are the reason. You're the reason why we celebrate here on this earth, and Lord, that we have the privilege to celebrate you and be with our friends and family, enjoy those times. So Lord, let us slow down in life and enjoy. Lord, we pray a special blessing over this bulk community of trucking companies, shipping companies, brokerages, and our farmers, Lord, that you just be with them throughout this week. In your heavenly and precious name, amen. Last thing too, we do have a prayer line. If you would like, drop down below, but you can send a prayer request to prayer@bulkloads.com. We would be honored, and we find that a privilege to pray with you. Last but not least, if you haven't yet, make sure and subscribe. We got a lot of content that we're pushing out more and more every week. If you subscribe, you'll be notified anytime we push out a video, a clip, a podcast link, any of that sort. And then also, as one small thank you from us, if you don't mind sharing this clip with a few others that they can see the content we produce and get more subscribers on there, that would be just a small favor that we ask of you. Thank you very much for listening. And as always, God bless.